Hi everyone, this is my in a nutshell take on where it all went wrong with philosophy. How did we go from Rene Descartes saying I think therefore I am to Kimberly Crenshaw, Judith Butler and Jean Foucault perhaps giving us some postmodernist bullshit. That's really not at all helpful to the advancement of Western society and certainly doesn't help us with our mental health or being able to shore up any sort of classifications or know what to do at any given moment. We seem to be without classifications, without hierarchies, and one of the few people left fighting is Jordan Peterson, and now he's since passed away, but I would honourable mentions to Ludwig Wittgenstein. It's probably where this is going to end up. So if we start off at, say, John Locke, and he was saying, importantly, he said something like we have intuition. There is knowledge in your head that is put there probably by God, and you can trust it. And don't get me wrong, I would love to live during that time. If I could go back to any point in time anywhere, it would be sometime pre-David Hume, because David Hume came along and said, fuck all that, that's wrong. He said something that we have to accept now is true, and because of Hume we understand it, that there's only two ways of having knowledge. One is you look at a thing, you hear a thing, you smell, taste or feel a thing, and you have some sensory perception, and you come to know matters of fact. And that's 99% of the knowledge that you have. It's all of science. It's looking at a thing, examining a thing and knowing it. And importantly about matters of fact, it's almost always fringy and shades of grey, and we can never really know it, but it's the most important form of knowledge. And he said there's a second part of knowledge, which is something that gets called relations of ideas. So if you know a horse, in your mind you've got the idea of a horse. You know an eagle, in your mind you've got an eagle. You put a horse and an eagle together and you get a Pegasus, and that's how we say we know what a Pegasus is. If I asked you how the Pegasus smelt, or what colour were the Pegasus's eyes, you couldn't tell me because you've never seen a Pegasus. You have no matter of fact knowledge about a Pegasus, but in your mind you have knowledge of a horse, knowledge of an eagle, put it together, Pegasus. Another example would be if I said I had a friend of mine called Sam, and Sam was a bachelor, you know immediately that my friend's name Sam is really Samuel, and Samuel is a male, and that's because the term male or man is logically contained, or we say predicate, within the term bachelor. And that's a really old piece of philosophy. The bachelor thing is so essential. It gets used all the time in philosophy. So Hume really fucked it all up for us all by taking away this sort of intuitive knowledge or this sort of divine knowledge. And now we're left with, well, we've just got science. And science really all falls over. It fell over about 100 years ago. On the other side, the problem with what Hume said, though, was that it destroys science, really. If we can really only have those two sorts of knowledge, it doesn't allow for cause and effect. So take the example of fire. You see fire and you see smoke. So you think to yourself, fire causes smoke. But that's not true. You don't experience fire causing smoke. What you experience is what Hume calls constant conjunction. You experience fire, you experience smoke. You experience the two things at the same time. It's constant conjunction. They're always there at the same time. You don't experience what he called necessary connection. You don't experience fire causing smoke. Now, if you think of the formula for fire, what is it? Going back to year 12 chemistry now, carbon plus heat plus oxygen gives a different type of carbon and carbon monoxide or dioxide and heat and light, which is the fire that you see. And fire is the heat and light, and smoke is the carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide in a different form of carbon. What you're seeing, fire and smoke, are both outputs. So he does seem to be scientifically correct about his observations. So thanks, Hume. I suppose he was just the harbinger of what we were always going to find out anyway. On the other side of Europe, in Prussia, was someone who said, Achtung, schnell! What is this Hume? And it was a guy called Immanuel Kant. And he was a scientist, and he was devastated that Hume had destroyed science, but acknowledged the tenacity of his argument and the veracity of his argument. The argument was well and correct, and so Kant set about bringing science back. And he completely accepted the matter-of-fact thing. Fine, that exists. But he called it synthetic a posteriori knowledge. That is to say, you synthesize lots of things. You synthesize hoofs, legs, manes, whinnying, horse, the whole thing, and you synthesize together horse. And then you can only ever know the horse a posteriori. So you have to have post-experience knowledge of the horse. You have to see it, touch it, feel it, smell it, ride it, all this sort of stuff. Thus you know horse. And then he said, all right, what about these relations of ideas? Okay, he accepted that as well. So what that is analytic a priori knowledge. So you take something like a bachelor and you break it down into analyze it. You break it down into two component parts. It is a man who is unmarried. Take man, take unmarried, synthesize it together to come bachelor, or take bachelor, analyze it down into its component parts. And he was saying that if you know that Sam is a bachelor, then you know this thing prior to experience, a priori. You don't need to experience it. I said, my friend Sam is a bachelor. You go, I don't need to meet him. Definitely a male. Definitely unmarried too. And then he took the other two permutations of this. So you take analytic a posteriori. So that is to say, something you analyze a word and find out what is logically predicate within the word, but you only do it via experiencing the thing. Can't work. Impossible. Kant dismissed it. Hume wouldn't have accepted. We still don't accept it now. That is completely off the table. But in what was Kant's Copernican revolution, and the thing that makes him just the greatest philosopher of all time, he also said, let's take a look at synthetic a priori knowledge. Now, this is knowledge that you are synthesizing together, but you can know without experiencing it. Now, at first, that seems hard to understand, but let me give you a thought experiment. Let me give you an actual problem to solve, and this problem should determine whether or not you are a human being or not. Here is my problem for you. Give me your answer. Can something be entirely red and entirely green at the same time where red and green are different colors? Your answer should be no. If it isn't no, go see a psychologist. Give you another one. Imagine there is a point in space and time. Now we draw a line exactly through that point. My question to you is, how many other straight lines can run parallel to the first straight line that are off of that point? And you should be able to say infinite, or if you put it the other way around, if we draw a line off of that point and then we try and draw a straight line through that point, how many lines can be drawn that are perfectly parallel to the line off of the point? And your answer should be 1. Again, if you're not getting that, then there's something going on and you're probably answering in bad faith. And so from Kant's opinion, science is correct, cause and effect is true, and he also thought time and space and a few things like that they're not observable phenomena in society. They're not objects like bachelors or horses or eagles. But in our mind, there's a certain flaw. God or whoever it was put something in here, and he said that forevermore, whenever human beings come to know something, they will know it in time, in space, and they will have the question of cause and effect. And you can tell that this is true because I believe in space, and I believe space is expanding. And somehow I believe that space has a limit. And so what is space expanding into, right? It's insane. It's surely more space. Is space just everywhere? But then how can it be expanding? And obviously I need to go see a psychologist right now. There's something wrong here. Fuck it. We'll do another one. Time. I genuinely believe that there was something before time started. How did time start? What happened before time? And I think that I can divide time into seconds, microseconds, picoseconds, nanoseconds, but like there's no infinitesimally small, where does one unit of time start, another one finish? And I go crazy thinking about this. Well, cause and effect. Everything is cause, everything is effect, and it is caused by something. And I believe there was a first cause, but what caused it? Again, I go crazy, and it's so simple for me to go, God did it, right? And at this moment I can't agree that just give in and believe in God. It's called deism. It's something that's a salvation for certain philosophers and scientists out there. Just to really drive home the point about what Kant is saying, and this is how we slide nicely into this sort of woke culture that we've got at the moment. Imagine that there's a perfectly invisible, what they call white light, but invisible beam of light bounces off a wall that's painted white, like literally white, and into my eyeball. Now science explains that's how I see white. All the Roy G. Biv stuff gets attenuated, or doesn't get attenuated. Let's call it a blue wall. All the Roy G. Biv stuff gets attenuated except for the blue color. Blue color enters my eye. Now I have to accept that my lens, my aqueous humor, my cornea, and my vitreous humor, and my retina, which are all parts of the organ of the eye, have some amount of color to them. So whilst the blue bit of light is going into my eye, it gets tinted by my lens, my aqueous and vitreous humor, my cornea, and my retina. I will literally, and you will literally never see blue. It will always be blue, thus tinted by the shit inside your eye. Now here's the thing. the shit inside my eye is in the exact same tint as the shit inside your eye. So you and I will never know the exact same blue color. What you think is blue, even if we're looking at the same wall, under the same light, at the same time of day, you will always see a different blue to me because of the tint inside our eyeball. And I accept that as completely true. You and I will never know the same blue. Here's where you can easily move into the wokeism sort of thing. I also accept that this is true for, say, something like value systems or cultures. So if I grow up in a culture that says that a 5'8" blonde woman is 36, 24, 36, and she's 22 years old or something like that, is the most beautiful of women, then my culture is much like my eyeball. The female, this is going to get sleazy if I try and torture this analogy out, but you know what I mean. My culture influences to me as to what I think is good or bad. Single mother, is that good or bad? Being an atheist, is that good or bad? Killing for your country, is that good or bad? Torture, good or bad? Refugees and immigration, good or bad? All of that is influenced by the tint of, say, the metaphor, the eye for the culture. And so there are people out there that are saying, look, let's not pretend to dictate to anyone what blue is, because we all know our way of detecting blue is flawed. And there are people out there saying, let's not pretend to understand what is good or bad in a culture, because the way that your culture operates has long since tinted your value systems. And even though you have to go via like Hegel, Husserl, and Foucault, and Derrida, and Lyotard, and a whole bunch of others to try and get to really what is cultural Marxism, ending up in like modern day Kimberly Crenshaw or something like that, maybe Judith Butler. This is the quick and nasty way to get into what woke culture is. Video's long enough. I'm going to leave it there. I got another one coming soon. So thanks guys for listening. Like and subscribe and all that sort of stuff, and talk to you later.